but because we saw that we can control the pandemic, people can start like thinking differently now, and they're a little bit they're back again, like seeing us foreigners as people full of opportunities and yes, than just like foreigners probably having the COVID-19.
This week on Dirty Linen, we wrap up a week of... Hang on, I want to do that again. Today on Dirty Linen, we wrap up a week of going around the country, talking to people in different cities about their experiences and how things are going. I am so excited to head to Hobart today to speak to Yoana Lemonnier, a working holiday visa holder, a gastronome who's working in a fine dining restaurant in Hobart. And I'm so happy to talk to you, Yoana, to find out how things are going in Tasmania. Welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you so much.
Tell me where you are. Tell me about what you're doing in Hobart, where you're working and how things are going.
All right. So yes, I arrived like last July. I was back to Hobart. I lived in 2018, 6 months in Hobart, and I always had very, very good memories here. So I decided to be back here, and I struggled a little bit finding, of course, like during the pandemic, trying to find work in hospitality. It wasn't a good moment at all. And now I'm very happy to work in the restaurant landscape. So part of the Henry Jones Hotel here in the waterfront in Hobart.
I love that part of Hobart. It's so beautiful and feels very historic. It's just, I guess, on the edge of Hobart's quite small but very pretty CBD. And the Henry Jones Hotel is sort of goes alongside one of the wharfs. And there's ferries there, there's sailboats, there's, waterfront restaurants. It's a really, really lovely part of the city. Tell me about landscape and what the restaurant is like.
Well, so landscape and globally the Henry Jones restaurant is in the old factory IXL. So it was a jam factory. It's in a very old and heritage building on the waterfront. It's a grill restaurant using an Argentinian asado grill. So it's as a Argentinian style wood fire barbecue. Yes, it's an amazing place for fine dining. Beautiful design inside. You with few. They also celebrate few John Glover landscape painting. Yes, so it's a very, very beautiful place.
And what's your role there?
So I am a fine dining waitress. I'm working with also, so we are a team of maybe 6 or 7 per night. Working also with my manager, who is maître d'hôtel. And yes, what can I say more? It's a really nice place.
Tell me why you love fine dining. Like why do you love working at that level? What is it about the kind of experiences that you offer that really make you happy?
Yeah, so at first, so I wasn't working at all in hospitality in France. I was working in event management, and what I really like working in hospitality, especially here in Australia, so far from my country, it's being part again, like a little bit like in contact with my roots. So yes, with this hospitality that we can offer in France, I'm really happy to be part of that here in Australia. So offering very good food, especially in Tasmania. So beautiful products, and also like hosting people as your own guest. This is something I really like in hospitality in fine dining.
Do you feel like that's something is that more of a sort of a classic way of looking after people that you feel is really embedded in France, whereas in Australia, where things are often very casual, that it's something that we don't see as much as perhaps you would have back home?
Um, I will say that in fine dining, we offer high standard of hospitality, and but something I really like in Australia, it's like even with high standard that we can offer, it's still something pretty casual, and the relationship that you can have with your guests, your customers, is not cold as it can be in France sometimes, in especially this kind of fine dining restaurant, and it's something I really like also. So I won't say that French hospitality is better than the Australian one. Not at all. It's I think in Australia it's there is a particular mix that make it like really nice, like still with high standard that I could we could learn in France, but also with this casual yeah, this casual je ne sais quoi Australian, which is like pretty amazing.
Yeah. You know, what you've just made me think of is a time when I was in Paris and I was by myself and I wanted to really have a 3 Michelin star benchmark experience for myself. So I booked myself self into Le Meurice, just right opposite the Louvre, like super classic, such a grand dining room. There were ice sculptures. There were like 5 meter high windows. There was these grand fireplaces so big you could have stood inside them, and, you know, when a dish was presented at the table, it would take 3 people, like one person carrying the platter, someone else to remove the silver cloche, somebody else waiting with the serving utensils, and it was so grand. And I was so charmed by it, and I think because I was evidently so excited, they were super nice to me, but I could see some of the other tables where people were a bit more blasé, and I guess, you know, people that have got a lot of money that take that sort of stuff for granted, were sort of just lounging around and not noticing how beautifully the peas had been shelled like I was. But I really appreciated every small detail and the grandeur of the room, and I suppose the tradition that I felt like I was part of. It felt so French, but so human as well. You know, I really felt like they were really happy to give me a memorable experience. And look, here I am, maybe 10 years later, still talking about it. So I reckon they did a really great job.
Yeah, so if yeah, indeed, like in France, the what we call art de la table. So like all the art of the hospitality, but also like the like all the kitchenware and tableware, all of that. Like it's a big part of our tradition, and it's something that we really like to yeah to it's part of our past, but we really like it having that as part of our future too, and or like something that we like to as an heritage we like to celebrate in France. Yes.
Yeah. And what part of France are you from?
Well, I grew up near Paris, but before coming in Australia, I was living in Bordeaux. My family on my father's side is living on the countryside of Bordeaux, what we call Dordogne or Périgord. So yes, it's the country of duck fat potatoes. Yeah.
What
So
a good country. That is an amazing part of France, like such incredible food and wine, and, Bordeaux is such a great city as well, so
yes,
beautiful.
beautiful. Yes. Yes, we call it the so not anymore, but it was the Sleeping Beauty. For a few decades, this city was not as amazing it is now. So now they did a beautiful work on the heritage buildings and all the vibes of this city. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Mm. One of the, best food days of my life was in Bordeaux, walking around with my daughter, trying all the different cannelés. So it's my favorite little cake baked in those fluted molds, and it's got this beautiful caramelized exterior and just so just sweet and, oh, so beautiful on the inside. And I just we became experts by the end of the day trying all the different canapés from the different shops. So it was a very good, day of investigation.
Yes, yeah, it's really nice. Really nice little pastry.
Yeah. So, what brought you to Australia, Joanna? It's a long way from France.
Well, at first, so I wanted to improve my English, so and I was also like I really wanted like to do like a trip, or how can I say, like an experience in a overseas, like in another country. And I chose Australia for different reasons. For Yeah, first one will be of course the landscapes. I was really attracted by that. The second is because I already had few contact here, a little bit of network. Uh, yeah, and it was easier for me to arrive at least for the few first weeks. My plan was to stay only 6 months, and after my 6 months, I was back 1 month in France, and I just decided to be back again in Australia because I felt that something I didn't finish something, if I can say that. I couldn't be back in France. Something, yeah, I know, yeah, I really I needed to be back in Australia, and I'm so now, yeah. So in March it will be 3 years. I didn't really travel as I would like around Australia, but yeah, I had an amazing experience here. So yes.
So, with a working holiday visa, first you get 1 year, then you get another year, and is 3 years the outer limit of what you can have on the working holiday visa?
Yes. So you need to do 3 months or 88 days to get the second year. So it can be in farm. I think you can do mining. There is few few things request. Then you can do a third year if you do 6 months. So yes, I did all of that. Yeah, and I've got my third year. So I'm currently on my third year. Yeah.
So, when you say the 88 days and the 6 months, that's basically rural work, and a lot of people go and pick fruit or vegetables. What did you do for those rural stints?
So I was working in a farm in New South Wales, so in the central west, a little bit further after Orange. And so I work in this family farm, so with beef cattle, sheep, and grains. It was really yeah. It's a family, so it was really pretty nice to work with them. It's still hard work, like farming, like everybody knows it's hard work. But yeah, it was a nice experience too, and I felt really lucky because I didn't work in bad conditions. That sometimes we can hear some working holiday visa holders
Mm.
like working really bad condition, or in different big farms from fruits and veggies. So I felt really grateful about that. And yes, I discovered all this area, the central west in New South Wales. It's pretty. Yeah, it's a beautiful area. Also, like Orange, like a wine. It's a wine country too, and yes, it was pretty
Mm.
delightful. Yes.
That's good. And what kind of jobs did you have to do? What was what was your role?
Well, I was pretty. I was helping for different things, like so sometimes if we had like the calf, I was in charge of the calf. I was also in charge of moving the cattle with the buggy. Um, I was also so I didn't do a lot of big machinery because I didn't have the skills to do that. But yeah, I was most of the time in contact. Also, when we needed to giving like how do I say vaccination for the cattle, so all this kind of moments. Also, like shearing the sheep. Yes,
Really?
yeah,
Did you do that?
yeah. I mean, I didn't really share. I was like more in contact. Like how can I say like like uh, putting like the good wool on the side and the bad one on the side and cleaning around. But no, shearing is definitely a hard work. It's really hard. Yeah.
That's It sounds like a pretty good experience. So you did that for 88 days, and then what about the 6 months that you had to do, or was that the 6 months?
Yeah, so I was back in the same I was back working for the same family. Yes. Yes. Yeah, because I was just happy because they are fair people, and so yeah, I yeah, I felt it was a good idea to be back there. Yes.
That's great. And so what about at the end of your 3rd year? What's your plan?
So my third year will stop in March, but I would like to start studying in February. I would like to improve my skills in hospitality, so I will start hospitality studies next week. Next week, sorry, next year. Um, yeah, so here in Hobart, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I Yes, so
So then you can go onto a student visa.
yes, exactly. And I will still be able to work also for landscape. So it will be a nice place to improve also my skills that I will learn at school.
Great. That's so good. And I mean,
Yeah.
do you see your future in Australia, or do you think you'll go back to France one day?
To be honest, I really want to settle here in Australia. Of course, like especially with the pandemic, it made things like really hard. I mean, like my plan was to be back for visiting my family in June, and uh, yeah, as everybody knows, like I couldn't do that at all. So yeah, now it will be 2 years that 2 years, yeah, 2 years that I didn't see my family at all. It started being a bit hard, and in this hard moment, sometimes I felt that I wanted to be back living in France just because, yeah, it's hard. But yeah, in the sunny days, I will say I really want to settle here in Australia because, yeah, it's an amazing country full of opportunities. So, yeah, I yeah, I hope so.
I hope so too. So when the pandemic hit, were you in Sydney?
No, so yeah, I was very lucky. So what happened in was it in March? Yeah, in March. I wanted to be back in Hobart at the end of my experience at the farm. So when I get my new visa, I wanted to be back in Hobart to stay like few weeks, seeing my friends here, and I my flight was cancelled, and it's the pandemic started, and I was very lucky to have friends there in Orange, and they just they just accommodate give me accommodation for until July. Yes, so from March to
Really?
July. Yes,
Oh,
so I was very lucky. Yeah,
wow.
helping me. Yeah.
So from March to July, you were in Orange, not working as such, just like hiding out more or less in Orange, which is a beautiful town. It's such a nice place.
Yeah.
And
So what happened? Sorry, I work a little bit. I started working in June, for a restaurant in Orange there, so shared kitchen and bar. But yeah, before, so between March and June, yes, I was without any job, and because I was also living with someone with someone very at risk about the COVID 19. I couldn't find any work like, like I don't know, as cleaning or risky work to
mhm,
protect this
mhm.
person. Yeah.
Wow. So that must have been a pretty isolated period for you, and quite worrying because as a working holiday visa holder, you weren't entitled to any support from the government, unfortunately.
Mhm.
What Yeah, and I guess, we didn't know how long that period was going to be. So how was that time for you?
It was pretty, no, it wasn't pretty. It was very, very, it gave me a lot of anxiety, to be honest. It was a very, very tough moment. Um, yeah, so I'm someone very dynamic, and I felt like I was completely stuck inside. It was winter. Yeah, I couldn't do anything like except sometime walking. I mean, as everybody, except sometime walking a little bit outside. And yeah, you have this anxiety about what will be your future. So what will be all the work, also all the month before you work so much to get yeah, to get an opportunity, for example, to stay here in Australia, and I was very scared that it could like just collapse. Yeah, all this work could be for nothing, if I can say that. There was also the problem of having no incomes at all. So yeah, it was very hard. Yeah, especially as I said, like I'm someone pretty independent, and I'm really grateful that people helped me so much in this period, but I also felt like I wasn't. I felt a little bit bad to have all this help from my friends. I would say that, like, yeah, I felt like not bad, but as an independent person, I wanted to. Yeah, it was hard for me to accept all this help. But yes, it was. Yeah. Anyway, it was very hard. Yes, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess as you've described, you just finished your 6-month obligation to Australia, like you've been abiding by the conditions of your visa, which, are pretty onerous, like and not just, it sounds like you had a pretty good experience, which is great, but you really do have to jump through quite a few hoops to be allowed to stay in the country. And then as soon as you've completed that obligation, it's like the government really didn't, return any sense of that obligation to you, did it?
yes, yes, and something. Of course, there was like few things really upsetting at this moment also. So, not having help from the government, it's something. But also another thing is like there was a kind of, how can I say? Yeah, I think like everybody with in my condition, we all felt that the Australian government was showing its back. Like so, they just like, yeah, they didn't really treated us like, yeah, how can I say that, all the effort that we can give to Australia for to stay here, and at the end, so the government asking us like that if we can't have like any income or anything, we have to be back home, and so we felt like very abandoned, abandoned. Sorry. Yes, we felt. Yeah, a lot of people felt this feeling because yeah, I think yeah, it's people working holiday visa holder, it's a big workforce in hospitality or also in farming, so in fruit picking or and yeah, and so we didn't feel at all like supported at all by the government about that, not just about money support, but also like support about yes,
That you were part of it.
we were not yeah, we were not recognized at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's really.
and it's something a bit upsetting. Yes.
Is it I mean, I can hear, how much that affected you then. Like, how do you feel about it now looking back? I mean, do you feel like I don't know, is there a sense of, I don't know, we got through it, okay, whatever, or do you still harbor some resentment about how you were treated?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm still, as I said, I still want to settle here in Australia because I still feel that it's an amazing country with amazing opportunities. So I don't feel. Yeah, I felt upset at this moment, but I don't feel. How can I say? I'm not enough upset to say, oh, like anyway, now I'm back home, and that's it, and I don't want to hear anymore about Australia. I still feel that Australia, it's a country, um, yeah, where I can settle I can settle my future here. It just yeah, it was a tough moment because people also change their yeah, they saw like visa working holiday visa holder a bit differently, I would say, because the government wasn't supporting us. People stopped supporting us also. So we were like just foreigners, like in this pandemic, in this high moment of pandemic, we were foreigners, possibly COVID-19 holders too. We were possibly like someone having COVID-19. Like um, all this period of people were completely thinking really. How can I explain? Like people were
Like
mixing,
suspicious.
yeah, suspicious, and people were mixing everything. So it was also that I think the big thing is because the government didn't support us, people also start like thinking not on the good way about us like foreigners, and not just working holiday visa, but also all the skills visa holders. And yes, so yeah, it was a bit it was a weird moment. But yeah, I can feel that things are changing pretty well, and it's people like they can now like they're a little bit more relaxed, I will say, about the COVID-19. Still, like it's still risky and it's still like dangerous, but because we saw that with good measures, um we can control the pandemic. So people can start like thinking differently now, and they're a little bit yeah, they're back again, like seeing us foreigners as people, yeah, full of opportunities, and yes, than just like foreigners probably having the COVID-19.
I think, it's so important what you're saying, Joanna, because I think it really the government can set a tone for, who is treated as an insider and an outsider in a community. And I think a lot of people in Australia, this is probably the most people have ever had to engage with government or had to think about government. It's a sign of our relative good fortune as a nation that the government just sort of hums away in the background for most people most of the time. But of course, because we had to deal with a pandemic, the rules were very much to the fore and very much the first thing that people were talking about. And in an environment like that, it's the messaging from our leaders is so important in how people are looked at and perceived and treated in a community. And I think it was, sure, as you say, there was definitely the practical implications of not being supported financially, but there are these very important implications as far as the tone and the feeling and the emotional support that's given to people. And it was really one of the things that struck me as most disappointing and damaging, is this sense that some people are in and some people are out. And that kind of thinking can really, it can really get out of hand in a society, especially when it's under stress, as we all have been, where you really don't want people to be marginalized. There are so many reasons why that's the case. And it makes them feel bad, but it also puts them on the outer in terms of, a a health response which everybody has to be part of. So it's wrong on so many levels, and I'm really glad that it hasn't turned you against Australia completely, and that you're still here sharing your skills with us, and that you want to continue to do that. I think that's great. There are a lot of internationals that have left or are going to leave when their visas expire, and they're leaving with a really bad taste. And I think that yeah, that reflects on everyone in Australia, and I'm really ashamed of how Australia's treated people that were here according to all the rules, investing in their time here, and yeah, it's a disgrace. Um, but anyway, let's talk about Hobart now, because one of the things I've wanted to do this week is just see how the cities are recovering. I'm here in Melbourne, and we are seeing the city come back. But I think, I was talking to a taxi driver the other day, and he said every time he's taking someone into the city, they always say to him, "Oh my goodness, it's my first time back in." Hobart's very different to Melbourne. It's much smaller, but tell me how the city's feeling. Do things feel like they've recovered?
Yeah, so things starting to be back step by step. So, for example, I can see it from my eyes as when I'm working. I will say. So it's our first. So last week we're starting being open every day from the 1st December, and so yes, the every night the restaurant like is pretty busy. So and I'm asking all the time when I'm serving my guests, my customers. I'm asking them where are they come from, just like to start the discussion and starting having kind of yeah, good start for their dining, and a lot of people are telling me that they are from Sydney or Melbourne or Byron Bay or anywhere, and
Great.
I can
That's
feel that.
good.
Yes, so yeah, people are back in Tassie, and it's really good. Yeah, so the tourism, I think step by step is back on the track. Yes.
That's really great. And do you know if people are back working in offices for the most part in Hobart?
Uh, no, I think people are back. It's hard to say. We say so about my different friends. They're still sometimes like they try to keep like one day. No, I think now they're every day back in the office. Yeah, they like yeah. So recently they were keeping like at least one day per week at home and doing like everything online. Um, and now I think like everybody, just what I can see from my eyes, yeah, a lot are back in the offices, so it's pretty back like as normal, I will say. And I also see like just this morning that apparently now in Tassie we are allowed to dance and standing drinking, so only for 100 people inside, but it's still yeah, it's still something amazing. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's so exciting, those little changes. We're now allowed to stand up and drink, and we're allowed to dance as well. So it's funny the things that we
Yes,
get
yeah,
excited about, isn't it? It's
of course, yes.
such a strange year. S Yeah. So, Joanna, things in France are not obviously, they're not as lucky as us here in terms of, effective elimination of the virus. Are you feeling fortunate in that sense that you're away from the pandemic, but I'm sure at the same time you've got concerns about friends and family back in France?
Yes, definitely, yes. Yeah, I feel like definitely grateful being here because yeah, I can work today. Like if I was in France, I'm especially in hospitality. I don't think I could find any work, or I don't think I could work. So yeah, I feel really very grateful about that, and definitely give me. I have also the other side, like I'm very anxious about my family in France, about like for example my grandmother, like Yeah, so everybody tried to protect her, and it's pretty amazing. But it just, yeah, it's a tough moment there too at the moment. It's also like, yeah, in France it was already like full of, how can I say, tension about economy, about other things with the government. And as you could see, maybe earlier, that the different strikes and that they have at the beginning of the year with the yellow jackets. And so all these things, like, it's still around. They and all this tension with the COVID-19, it just like, it's something like giving me also anxiety. Like, it's a little bit like a bombshell. So I just hope everything will be okay. Because, yeah, the country, yeah, France look okay from overseas, but it's the country is pretty sick, I will say. Yeah, sick about, yeah, the governmental, yeah, lack of real leaders and good decision, and like the pandemic management was very, very bad. So yeah, people are yeah people are pretty anxious about all of that in France. And yes.
It's really tough. Um, yeah. So, Joanna, when I come to landscape, what are you going to tell me that I need to order?
Mm, I will say that, to start, we have a beautiful selection of Tasmanian oysters. I will also say that, I will advise you a steak on our grill. So a beautiful Wagyu eye fillet, for example. And of course, I will advise you the duck fat potatoes served with rosemary and garlic. Of course, I'm really happy to advise this one. And yes, we have also like a beautiful desserts too. So yeah, so it's I will say it's a pretty simple cuisine, but with very, very good ingredients, like really like celebrating Tasmania and all the beautiful food that Tasmania can make and offer. Yes.
Ah, so wonderful. Well, I know it would be an absolute pleasure to be looked after you in any restaurant, but I do hope I get the opportunity to come to Landscape and eat all the things that you tell me I need to eat. But Joanna, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you today. I really appreciate your perspective on this crazy year that we're almost through, and I'm really glad that you see your future here in Australia. We're lucky. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.